welcome to the station, FreeMMOStation. I'm Skylant Shore, and today I'm going to give you my first impressions of a new free-to-play MMORPG, CABAL 2.
FreeMMOStation.com.
Now, the overview for the game, I guess I could say it's a standard MMO. Like, seriously, if you played pretty much any other MMO, you've probably played this game, basically. You have usual linear questing and progression. No voice, it's just you read the text, and also it's not simplified, you know, like Pokemon or Dragon Nest. Pages of text, guys, you're probably not going to read this. Nothing terribly spectacular with their spells or abilities either. Mechanically, the game is also very usual. The aesthetic of this world of the abilities, I guess you could say, are also a little bit unique, but mechanically, the actual game feel is nothing new. Now the world, the setting, how it looks, all that good jazz, it's a little bit disappointing, honestly. A little bit kind of different, but still. One thing that disappointed me, I guess you could say, would be the single-player focus that the game first appears to have. Yes, it's an MMO, and at the very beginning you are playing with other people in an open world, but the cutscenes and the lore and the quests are all entirely focused on the player character. So it's really immersion breaking when you're doing these very single-player focused quests with other people, or other people are doing it around you. There's really no distinction between the other players. In Guild Wars 2, for instance, there's an entirely separate quest line for single-player experiences, and there's also branching storylines, where in CABAL 2, everyone is the same background, and it leaves very little room for imagination. Now, I enjoy the interesting sci-fi fantasy setting being built here, I really do. It reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy, but still, nothing terribly novel. One thing that I appreciate is the fact that the class naming, their abilities, and their magic sources are all influenced and named after the original in-game lore and mythology, so we have that at least. And speaking on classes, what do we have? Well, we actually dropped the Blader class here. It was a dual-wielding sword class in the original game, and now we have a healing class, the Priest, in replacement of that. So yeah, while the Blader, I guess, had an interesting aesthetic in the first game, even I played it, that was my main class in the first game, the more defined Priest class is a much more unique addition to the class lineup than the Blader, since we already had a Force Blader and a Warrior to round out that particular niche. So there's also a Force Archer and a Mage in the game. So each class kind of fills a niche, such as Tank, Healer, AoE damage, single target DPS, etc. And this kind of gives us an indication of how the endgame's going to play out this time around, since we will probably be needing dedicated roles for dungeons similar to, maybe if not identical, Trinity system that we are used to, you know, healer, tank, DPS. Overall, yeah, they do kind of look different, but a lot of the abilities are actually very similar between them, so not too much differentiation like we see in games like WildStar. Now, the actual gameplay is heavily focused on tactics, where players need to both memorize and create their own skill combos. So yeah, it's very combo related. There's a system called continuous skills, which are abilities that can be used over and over again. Then you also have combo skills, kind of similar to Terra, where one ability might prompt the use of another and the player gets a bonus from doing so. So yeah, you can kind of mix and match what you want to do, and basically the game is very memorization based. You just memorize your rotation, create rotations, and try to just get the biggest DPS that you can get. Now, second to skill rotation memorization comes the positioning, which is a little bit more lenient in this game than the previous game because you have a little bit more fluid movement versus the older standstill system. So yeah, if you've seen some videos of CABAL, this game is actually not standstill, but you're kind of, I don't know, because it is very combo based and rotation based, you don't really have a lot of time to move around, so you're kind of like incentivized to stand still, which is a little bit awkward. Yeah, CABAL 2, however, it's not as mobile or agility-based as, say, something like Guild Wars 2. Even though it does have free movement like World of Warcraft, it really doesn't feel as free as it could be. So knowing when to move, where to move, what ability to use, or rotations, that's all key. Now, while its action mechanics are very spammable, I enjoy that there's actually a penalty for spamming, so that there's actual tactics and gameplay. Yeah, you can't just press any button, you know, rotations, all that stuff, it's very important. But there's still very much a lack of mobility abilities like we see in Guild Wars 2 or Terra. I really enjoy those, and overall the game just kind of feels clunky in that aspect. So the graphics. The game looks good. I can't say it doesn't look good. It's not overwhelming, but it's solid, definitely solid. You can clearly see that they kept their style intact. It just kind of increased the graphical fidelity, and of course the change in camera is definitely a big impact. Now, I appreciate the blade trails. This is something that I really like. The particle effects from swinging your weapon and the abilities, it looks really good. I think it even rivals games famous for particle effects like Final Fantasy. And overall, it's got a lot of color. It's got a really aggressive effects, which makes it stand out against, I think, a lot of competitors. But still, even at this point in production, there's numerous graphical errors, harsh edges, aliasing issues, and overall lower quality textures. It's not a bad looking game, but compared to AAA games, it really could only be called, I guess, like fair. You know, it's whatever. Now the verdict, guys. For my verdict, my first impression, I think the game does not lend itself well to first impressions. This is a theme park MMO, very linear, and only really truly shows its colors probably during the competitive endgame, PvE, and PvP. So if you're willing to stick out the grind, which there's obviously a grind here, you might find an interesting experience at the end, but I honestly don't think that the majority of players will. If you enjoyed the first game, you might enjoy the second game, but in my personal opinion, how I think this game should have went, they should have went like an action RPG style, like we see with Lost Ark coming out. They probably should have done something like that. I don't think that the graphical fidelity and the way the game looks, it just doesn't differentiate itself too much from the competition here. It might be the newest and best of its genre, but that's just what it is, another one in its genre. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Skyline Shore with FreeMMOStation. If you have anything to comment about my first impressions, go ahead and leave it in the comments below if you play this game right now. Let me know how you feel. I'd love to talk about that. So go ahead and like and subscribe if you want to keep seeing new updates on new free-to-play games, of course, top 10s and all that good fun stuff, and we will see you again next time.